Hey guys, it's Eric here. I wanted to cover doing a travel change. The travel change will cover Loop Trail as I have here, also the Stage Fork and the Loop SL. So, first thing we want to do whenever we're doing a travel change, especially on the Loop Trail and the Loop and the Stage Fork, is back the ramp control all the way off until it's at the minimum setting. This will allow air, as you let air out, to completely evacuate from the air chamber. So sometimes you may need to use a tool to just release all that air out. Then remove the dust cover. And release all the air out of the air spring rod there. Next, take your 10mm wrench and remove the Schrader valve out of the bottom of the fork. With the Schrader valve removed, a nice little trick is to remove the O-rings off of the Schrader valve. And if they are damaged in any way, just replace those at this time. Okay, with those O-rings removed, take that dust cover and just thread it back onto the Schrader valve. This is now going to be your tool for releasing the air rod and the damper rod from the lowers. So thread that in until you have about 5mm worth of thread still showing. Give it a light tap, and then you can remove the Schrader valve out of the bottom. Set that aside for now. Next step will be to take the rebound knob off. So take your 1.5mm Allen, loosen the set screw until you can pop the rebound knob off. Then take your rebound removal tool and just install it onto the end of the rebound bolt here. With that installed, you can now remove the rebound bolt from the fork. Once the threads are fully disengaged, just take the rebound bolt and set that aside. Take your Schrader valve that's now a tool, thread it into the damper side, again leaving about 5mm worth of thread showing, and just release the damper rod from the lowers. Remove the Schrader valve again, and then slide the upper assembly away from the lower assembly. Take the lower assembly, it may drip oil from the bath oil in the fork. Go ahead and set that aside over a bin where it can drain out and not spread everywhere. So with the changing of the travel on the air spring side, it's always a good measure to double check that all the air is released, and you can push in on the air spring rod and hold it into place and release the last little bit of air. That way you know that nothing's going to pop out on you as you remove the snap ring. On the Loop SLs and the Loop Trails, you can use a set of snap ring pliers to remove the snap ring out of the bottom of the fork, and then you can lightly grab the air spring rod and just pull it just straight up. You don't have to pull it all the way out because all you need is this seal head. I'm going to show you one little extra step on the Stage Fork. So on the Stage Fork, you're going to have this bottom out peg sticking out of the bottom of the stanchion. You want to just, with some firm pressure, I use 2 thumbs, Just pop that until it pops loose, slide it off. Then with a small screwdriver, you can grab that snap ring pull that snap ring out so that you can, just like the loop fork, pull on it lightly and pull out that seal head. Set that aside. So with the loop seal head, what we're going to do on this fork is reduce the travel. We're going to reduce it by 10 millimeters. So you get a 10 millimeter spacer or a 20 millimeter spacer with each fork, unless you have the shortest travel fork, and then it has all the spacers already inside the fork. So just a matter of mix matching the different spacers to get the exact travel you want. So just snap this travel spacer into that seal head and then reinsert it into the end of the stanchion. Take your snap ring with your snap ring pliers and just install that into place. I always like to spin the snap ring just a little bit just to make sure that it's fully seated into its groove. And with the Loop SL and the Loop Trail, that's all you need to do for changing the travel there. On the stage, as you can see, we've already got a travel spacer on there. When you reinstall that seal head, you'll be able to put the snap ring in by hand. And then don't forget to take the bottom out peg, slide it back over the air spring rod, and just firmly snap it down into place. Alright, back to the Loop Trail. So your next step will be to grab your lower assembly again and clean out any dirt or excess grease that might be in the wiper seals. And then we do include in the seal kit a little Slick Honey packet. Tear off the top and squirt about half the tube into one seal and then the other half into the other seal. Then with your finger, just smear this around, packing it into the seal and the foam ring underneath the seal. Everything greased up. Set your lowers on a nice flat surface. It's going to make the installation a little easier. Make sure both air spring rod and the damper rod are at full extension. It just makes installation a little easier. Slide the rods into the lowers, and then as soon as the uppers touch the wiper seals, just kind of wiggle them around until they slide through the seal, and then gently slide them past the first bushing. Once you have the bath oil in there, slide the lowers down until both rods touch the bottom of the fork. Then take your damper bolt and inspect these O-rings. If they're cut or damaged in any way, replace them now. Then, before installing the damper bolt, put the corner of a rag down into the bolt hole. You want to soak up any extra oil that may have gotten its way down into the rod. Then thread the damper bolt into the damper rod until you feel the needle inside the damper bolt touch the internal needle inside the damper rod. And then tighten this all into place. Once that becomes snug, turn the rebound all the way closed, then back it out 2 full revolutions. Then with 1.5 millimeter Allen, just remove your bolt installation tool. Take your rebound knob and install that onto the rebound bolt there. And lastly, since we removed the 2 O-rings, it's good to put new O-rings onto the Schrader valve. Those installed, you'll be able to thread those into the air spring rod. Tighten this all down into place. Then remove the dust cover off of the end of the Schrader valve. And you want to attach your shock pump. And with the Equal Air system, start by airing the fork up to about 50 psi. With the fork at about 50 psi, grab the brace in the uppers and pull the fork out to full extension. This way both the negative and the positive chambers equalize. Then air the fork up to your desired running pressure. With the fork at pressure, remove the shock pump. Give one last pull to full top out. Usually you don't get any extra pull, so you know that both chambers are at the right operating pressure. And then reinstall your dust cover. Now your fork is at a shorter or longer travel depending on what you were going for, and you're good to ride.